Good afternoon, good evening. This is Jory Vandenberg, the 388 Fighter Wing historian, and I'm conducting a series of interviews of the 388th Bombardment Group Heavy members during their 63rd annual reunion that is currently being conducted here at Savannah, Georgia. Today's date is 30 August 2012, and the individual I'm interviewing at the present time is
David Stewart.
All right, Mr. Stewart, welcome. What could you just try to get a little bit of background information about where you come from and where you've been? What was your hometown?
Well, it's a little town that nobody ever heard of in Texas called Blanket.
Blanket, Texas. And where the heck is Blanket, Texas?
It's right almost center of the state, towards San Angelo from Dallas area.
Okay. All right.
Almost center of the state.
Almost in the center part. Okay. Yeah, pretty close to that center. All right. What was your job in the Army Air Forces?
Okay.
What was your rank and job?
I was staff sergeant, but I was also tail gunner on a B-17. I flew 33 missions.
Okay.
And luckily, I think nobody on our crew even got a scratch in combat.
Okay.
That doesn't mean we didn't get shot up, but nobody really got hurt from enemy fire.
So all your crew and your plane survived the whole ordeal?
Well, I don't know about the plane, but the crew did.
All right. Did you have a dedicated airship that was yours? Did you have a name?
We never did keep one long enough to even get the name painted on it.
Okay. Did you ever nickname them anyway?
Yeah, we called them Pappy's Wagon. The reason we came up with that designation, the pilot was a school teacher, agriculture teacher.
Okay.
And we thought any agriculture teacher ought to have a wagon.
Okay.
He was the oldest guy on the crew, all of 25 years old.
Okay.
And everybody on the crew called him Pappy because
he's
an old man.
Thank you, Margaret Truman. All right, you said you were about 18 years old. You were a tail gunner?
Well, I was about 19 while I was actually flying combat.
Okay.
And I turned 20 just before I got my last mission in.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you about when and where did you enter active service? Where were you when you entered active service?
Okay, I entered service on September 15th, 1943.
Okay.
At Mineral Wells, Texas.
Okay.
Moved from there to Wichita Falls, Texas, to Air Base there, took basic. Then I went to gunner school at Las Vegas Army Airfield.
Okay.
It's since changed its name to,
it's Nellis.
Nellis Air Force Base.
Air Force Base.
And from there I went to Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And was assigned to the crew down there. That's where I first met the crew that I flew with.
Okay.
And we did a lot of training down there. Then we went from there to Savannah, Georgia, and was assigned to the 8th Air Force.
Okay.
Of course, we still didn't know what bomb group we'd be going into, but that's when we went overseas to England. Got over there, we went to a place where they sent all their replacement crews.
Okay.
And then we were assigned to the 380th Bomb Group from that point.
Okay.
And that would have been, in July of 44.
All right.
Somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay.
And then from there we went flying missions as soon as they were ready for us to.
All right. So it took you about 9 months from the time you first came in to get all your training and in your crew training.
Approximately.
To show up there. Okay. Do you remember the names of all of your crew members, that original crew member team? Starting with the pilot, co-pilot?
I can remember their last name. Maybe I come up with
just
the first
last name is fine. That's good.
Okay, Mr. James Comer, he was first lieutenant.
Okay.
Was the pilot. Marty Perona was the co-pilot. William Fletcher was the navigator. Bill Jefferson was the bombardier.
Okay.
Sanford Pike was the engineer, top turret. Walter Harpo was the ball turret gunner. Tony Cattarella was the radio operator.
Okay.
And Gibson, I can't come up with his first name at the moment, was the waist gunner.
Alrighty.
And I was the tail gunner.
Guy at the back.
And that we were flying with 9 men once we got over there. We went over with 10, but
Okay.
Neltner was the other waist gunner who was assigned to another crew after we got to
Okay.
England.
Right. Because I think by that time they realized that they could actually do it with just 9 people.
Do it with 9 and instead of 10.
Right. Because the radio operator would take over that waist gunner position once they got into that.
Well, the box formation was flying in. Usually the waist gunner would just be firing from one side anyhow.
Oh, okay.
However, he could turn to the other side if necessary, but that's generally he would be firing from one side of the aircraft. So that was their thinking.
All right, that was the big driver for that. Okay. All right, very good. After you got to Netteshaw, that was about July of 44?
Approximately
So that was
July, I'm not sure the date.
Okay, but D-Day has already come and gone.
Already,
So you missed
just after D-Day, a little while,
Right.
maybe nearly a month.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. So
then-
from July 44 on to the end of the war, what was your most memorable events or most exciting missions that you went on or whatever? You know, 1 or 2 that particularly stand out?
Okay, maybe 2 or 3 of them, but one mission,
Okay.
we had been in real heavy flak, and of course the navigator or bombardier, one of the two, if they had not heard from some of the crew members on the intercom, they would do what they call a crew check, just sound off to see if everybody's all right.
Okay.
So one day we'd been on this mission, and the flak was terrible. And the ball turret gunner, Harpo, didn't respond to the crew check. So the waist gunner said, well, the turret's not moving. He was up there where he could see.
Mm-hmm.
So I came out of the tail and went to the waist, and the waist gunner and I cranked the turret down to get the door up inside the aircraft and lifted Harpo out of there and kind of drug him up into the radio room, which was located just in front of the ball turret.
Okay.
Laid him down on the floor and got oxygen on him, trying to bring him to, and a piece of flak went through his shoe heel while we was working on him.
Okay.
And it looked like it would have had to have gone through his foot. But when we got it, we didn't have time to look right then, but as soon as he began to come around, we decided we better look to see how bad he's wounded, pulled his shoe off, and that flak had cut his sock, left a white mark right across his heel, but didn't bring any blood. So
Wow.
that was getting pretty close. That is one of the instances I can remember pretty well.
So why was he unconscious? Is it,
The hose to his oxygen mask had come unfastened from his coat,
oh, okay.
and the pressure from the hose hanging down kind of pulled down and broke the seal around his chin.
Okay.
Consequently, he wasn't getting any oxygen, and when you start not getting oxygen, you don't really feel anything, you just go to sleep.
Right. You just kind of
And
off.
that's why he lost oxygen.
Okay. But how did he turn out in the long run? Was he okay?
He was okay.
Minimal brain damage?
No, he was, in fact, he's here to this meeting today.
Oh, okay. So that was resuscitated him very promptly. So he
Promptly.
didn't have any, and then Shrapnel came up.
That's the reason we tried to check on every crew member with no more than every 15 minutes, one way or another.
That's pretty lucky. Lucky guy.
Because you couldn't survive long without oxygen up there as high as we were.
And do you remember what mission that was? Where
No,
it was
sir,
on the bomb?
I don't remember
Okay.
which one. It's just one of those things that happened.
Okay.
I just remember that happening.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you went on and bombed the target successfully?
we had already come off the target
Oh, okay.
on our way home when this incident happened. But
Okay. All right.
luckily he was okay.
Do you remember how early that was in the scheme of when you were in all of these missions?
Not
What's the
exactly.
timeframe? No, okay.
Probably about halfway through our
Okay.
tour.
That's fine. All right. Any other kind of exciting mission that you said you had about 2 or 3 that you thought were kind of rather memorable?
Okay, another situation we got into, we were on our way to Berlin, but the weather forecasting at that time was not too great. And we hit a weather front, just cloud bank. We were flying real close formation, and just all of a sudden you couldn't even see the wingtips on our own aircraft. Well, we were flying on the left-hand side of the formation on the outside, and our pilot knew that those other airplanes were to his right, so he just turned left because he couldn't see them, didn't know where they were.
Okay.
Well, we never did find that formation again, but when we broke out of that cloud bank, we were flying directly sideways through a formation of B-24s.
Whoa.
And they were all over us. And I don't know to this day how we got through them, but we didn't hit anybody.
Okay. Were they shooting at y'all or just
No,
trying
we
to dodge them?
just went through them.
Okay.
Because we just broke out of that cloud bank, and that's the first time we saw them when they broke out.
Yeah.
And it was a little hairy coming through there for a little bit. That was one thing that kind of impressed me. And I can think of another instance up in that area if you want me to go ahead and talk about that. Up in that same general area one time, we had just come off a bomb run. We'd already dropped our bombs and made our turn trying to get out of Germany is what we was trying to do.
Okay.
Heading towards the North Sea, pretty much. And I had the sensation that another aircraft was coming into our side, and it looked like he was coming up, but I'm sure we were coming down since we'd just come off the bomb run.
Okay.
And we were on a collision course. And when he got probably 30 feet or so from us, I saw we was going to hit, and I mashed our intercom button on an override button I had to get to the pilot, and I said, pull it up quick. And that plane felt like it jumped about 100 feet straight up. Excuse me. And then that plane went right under us, probably missed us by about 6 feet. And everything got just as quiet on that intercom for just a few seconds. Directly the co-pilot come on and said, whoo, that was close. And I could just feel those propellers cutting the seat of my pants out. So,
did you get a good look at the pilot and the co-pilot of the plane that was coming at y'all? Was there something that they had some vision obstruction or something?
I didn't know right then what happened, but we found out a little bit later that the pilot in that other aircraft had been killed and was still in the seat. And the co-pilot was trying to get him out of the seat, and I'm sure he probably was flying on autopilot.
Okay.
I didn't know that at the moment when it's happening, but I, found out some of this information later. And I'm sure he was probably flying on autopilot is the reason it.
Okay.
And
Or
he
had the
probably didn't even see us.
had
He
the
probably
bombardier
worked.
flying it?
Big bird.
Had the bombardier still flying it?
No, I
Was
made
the
him
bombardier-
on autopilot
Okay.
to see if they could switch it over. And I made him kicked it on autopilot, trying to get the pilot out of the seat so they could get him away from controls. But anyhow, that was kind of a hairy situation right there.
Yeah, it sounds like that's probably what was driving that. That they obviously ought to be able to see you too, right? But
But another time,
now that was that a bomber that was within our group?
yes.
So we was,
Well, it was another B-17, and I'm not sure which group he came out of.
okay.
Because a lot of times we'd have bombers, planes from several groups flying on the same mission.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I think he was from a different group, but finally found out this information
Okay.
later.
You did find out that's why they were doing that, because
Uh,
others had been killed. So okay.
Another time up in that same area, we got lost from our formation, went out over the North Sea and trying to get out from over Germany
Yes, sir.
to get away from the flak. Well, we made a mistake flying over a little old island that was German controlled called Heligoland.
Okay.
And everybody-
Heligoland?
Heligoland.
Heligoland. Okay.
And everybody that ever flew that area knew about that island. I think they had one gun emplacement. They called him One Gun Charlie, but he sure
Okay.
was a good shot.
Yeah.
When we got home, they started counting holes in that airplane, and it was like a sieve. They changed both wings and 3 engines on that thing before it'd fly again.
Whoa. And what kind of weapon did he have that was down?
88s,
Just 88s. Okay.
88 millimeter.
Okay. So they just shoot.
I assume that's what it was because it looked like the smoke would see.
Okay. The flak. So you were flying through flak. just
Oh,
going to
yeah,
this little island, and they were just.
Just
unloading.
riddled us.
Got lucky there. So when was the last mission that you flew? Where did
January
you fly?
15th, 1945.
Okay. So did you participate in the Operation Chowhound? Any missions?
That took place just after I finished my last mission, and I was probably already home when it,
Okay.
back to the States, that is,
Okay. All right.
when that took place.
All right. I think I forgot. I think I already asked that before, but not on record. Okay. So what did you do after you got back?
Okay, after I got back, of course, I was still in service for a while.
Yes, sir.
I ended up in San Antonio, Texas, working in a firing range, teaching some guys how to use a 45 caliber pistol and so forth, until time for me to get out of the service.
Okay. How did you get back, by the way? Did you come back on a Liberty ship, or did they put you in a plane?
Came back on a ship
Okay.
in a convoy. Took us about 14 days to cross the Atlantic.
Okay.
And about 7 days of that was spent in the edge of a hurricane.
Oh, that's great.
And it was really rough. And they had a bunch of the guys on there that had been in artillery and so forth on the ground. You never saw such a sick bunch of guys in your life. Most of the guys had been flying, they'd been beat around so that it didn't bother them.
Yeah. They didn't get the seasickness. That's kind of funny. What port did they take you into?
New York.
New York. Okay.
And then when we disembarked, we went to Camp Kilmer, which is over in New Jersey, until they could send us back nearer home somewhere
Okay. All right.
for leave time.
Kind of deal. Now, when you went to San Antonio, how long were you there? How long were you stationed there?
About 6 or 8 months, something
Okay.
like somewhere in that vicinity.
And then you were mustered out?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you do after that?
Okay, I got out, I believe it was in November of 1945, and looking around and wasn't able to find a job right then, so I decided that I would just go to school on GI Bill,
Okay.
which was available to me. And I started to college then in the spring semester of January 1946.
Okay.
And went on, I thought possibly I might want to teach school. And I ended up getting a degree in mathematics and a major in secondary education, minor in science. Did it all in 3.5 years.
Okay. You just kind of got with it, didn't you? Did you have nothing else to do?
Working part-time, trying to take care of a family. And I was tired of it, of school when I got out. I didn't much want to teach then when I got out. So I finally went to work for in the building materials business, got a job there.
Okay.
And spent about 35, 36 years working in that.
Okay.
In their accounting end of it. And that's what I was doing when I retired, still in the accounting field.
All right. Cool. So that was ended up being a pretty good career for you at the end.
Made a living at it, I guess.
Yeah. That's good. Starting out as a tail gunner. You were fresh out of, well, I guess you'd been out of high school. How long were you doing something after high school before you went in?
Okay, I was working in a situation where they were digging, for lack of a better term, rock that they used to make weight material to use in drilling,
Okay.
and they also used some of it making explosives. I worked in that for a while till I went into service.
Okay.
I graduated from high school, I think, in 1942, and then I went into the service in 43.
Okay. September 43.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Well, that's pretty much it. Of course, there was a lot of things happening.
Yeah, things happen otherwise, but I mean, was there anything else you wanted to add or any other story you wanted to include?
Well, might be one other little.
Okay.
One day we were in the mess hall, and they had some apples in there, and I thought, boy, one of those sure would taste good coming back off one of those missions. So I got one that night, and took it to the barracks with me. The next morning we were scheduled for a mission. So I took that apple with me, and I had on a big old coat, and I put that apple in my coat pocket. And I was thinking about that thing until I get low enough that I get the oxygen mask off to eat it. I was hungry, you know. Pulled it out of my pocket, and my teeth just lanced off of it when I tried to take a bite. It froze solid so hard you starved to death trying to eat it. So I never did do that again.
Never did. Yeah, I guess you can't take because they get frozen up there.
Oh, it froze in my pocket. I didn't think about freezing in there.
Yeah.
But it did. So I didn't try that again.
Yeah, I guess next time you got to put it on the inside pocket or something.
Well,
Didn't think about that though, did you?
No.
You just figure, okay, I just not gonna make it. Oh well, no time for snacks when you're flying anyway, right?
well, another time we had took a brand new aircraft out and got it shot up considerably, and got one engine shot out. We wouldn't run at all. We'd already feathered the prop. Another than this smoke was boiling out of it, and we was just losing speed, dropping back out of the formation because the pilot thought we was fixing to lose that second engine, and there was 2 or 3 others who was dropping back. They got shot up, and they was dropping back a little faster than we were, and the German fighters were just circling back there behind us like a bunch of buzzards waiting for us to see who got the furthest out of the formation, see who was going to shoot down.
Okay.
So Bombardier come on there, and he said, "Pappy, do something."
Even if it's wrong.
And those old engines began to rev up. That old airplane started to vibrate. And normally we flew at about 150 miles an hour airspeed. And he got that thing up 225 miles an hour on 3 engines instead of 4.
Whoa.
shook that airplane all to pieces, but we didn't care as long as it got us back.
All right.
They worked and worked on that airplane, but it never was any good after that. It was a brand new one.
Just flat plumb wore out them engines. Overstressed them, yeah. And then just rattled, like you say, rattled the plane down.
Oh, it shook it all to pieces, I guess.
Yeah.
But we didn't care then as long as it got us back.
Yeah, that's kind of the important thing. Just another day, another aircraft.
Yeah.
So, cool. All right. Well, listen, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Well,
And,
thank you for carrying.
Yeah, it'll be a good little record here. Let me go off. Good evening. This is Jory Vandenberg. I'm the 388 Fighter Wing historian. I'm here conducting a series of interviews of the 388th Bombardment Group heavy members, and we're at the 63rd annual reunion for the bomb group. Today is 30 August 2012, and I'm currently interviewing the following individual.
Harry Sprague,
Okay.
and my hometown is Des Moines, Washington,
Okay.
and what
Kind of
else?
grew up, born and raised there.
I grew up in, I was born in South Bend, Washington,
Okay.
and then I grew up on the coast there, and then I went inland for a while, and then came back to the coast, and spent most of my time in Seattle, and then just moved down to Des Moines. Spent a little while in the mountains, a few years in the mountains, building a log cabin, and
Okay.
so
Being a mountain man, huh?
yeah.
Okay. What was your job? What was your job with the 388 Bombardment Group?
Well, I was a bombardier, and that entailed occasionally little gunnery. Also, I was in charge of the chin turret, and so the navigator and I both got credit for a probable of FW-190 on one of the missions,
Okay.
and that's the only one. So, yeah, that was the main thing. But in the later part, I got over late. I got over there in February of '45, and so the war was really winding down
Okay.
at that time. And so the bombardiers, they had probably a lot of them, so that's why I got set back for a few times.
Okay.
But they've changed their policy, and they were dropping on the lead bombardier. So you would watch the lead plane, and when they dropped their bombs, you toggled yours. So I didn't really have to do the bomb sight, except on one mission I was deputy lead, which I had to make sure what the target was and be ready to do it in case the lead went down.
Okay. By the way, how did you become a bombardier to begin with? When did you first come in to the military?
Well,
And,
I took a little bit different route, Jory, than
Okay.
most of them. I was drafted into the infantry, and I went into the infantry and went through all of their basic training. And towards the end of the basic training, which was a 13-week period, some of the fellows heard that the United States Air Force wanted some people. So we got the forms and filled them out, and I went over to Birmingham. This was at Fort McClellan, Alabama, where we went through the
okay.
training.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
And we went over to Birmingham and took the physicals, and I passed. So we came back to our unit in Fort McClellan, and they separated us out from the rest of them then. And so when the rest of them had to go on marches, the sergeant would say, "All the airplane drivers fall out," so we didn't have to go. So anyway, then I went through the Air Force Basic, which was another one down on the Gulf Coast in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay.
And then I went to a college training detachment up at Denver, Colorado. And then to the classification center in Santa Ana, California. Then up to gunnery school at Las Vegas, Nevada. And then finally to advanced bombardier school at Victorville, California.
Okay.
So-
Now, when you first went into the infantry school, you said you were drafted. Do you remember the date of that? When the date you were drafted?
Yeah, I think it was February of '43.
Okay, February 1943.
Yeah.
And then when you were accepted into the Army Air Forces, what time was that? What time?
Well, that was after 13 weeks of basic training.
Okay, so you're talking April?
Yeah.
April 43? Okay, and then by the time you ended up out in California and you started Bombardier School, when was that?
Right.
What time
Well,
was
that was in July. I graduated the class of 4410, which was July, I believe, 22nd of 1944.
Okay,
Yeah. And then we were sent to an operational training unit, which was down in El Paso, Texas. And there we were married up with a crew, and we practiced bombing with the B-17. We trained then with the B-17. And it got through that. That was quite an extensive training period of dropping blue bombs.
okay,
And then they had a glut of bombardiers in Europe, so they sent me back for another another crew, and I trained for another session down at El Paso, Texas, before I ever headed for Europe.
okay. And so what time, that second crew that you trained with, is that the crew that you went to Netashall with?
Yes.
Okay, and so what time was that? That was in February of 43 by the time you showed up?
It was
45, excuse me.
It was probably in January that we went. We went to Lincoln, Nebraska,
Okay,
which was a depot where they then sent them out. So then we went to New Jersey and sailed over on the USS Marine Fox
okay,
and landed in Great Britain, Southampton, and then went up to Blackpool, I think it was, and then they assigned us to the 388th, which was like February of 45.
okay. And that was that a full bomber crew that you were going around with?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Yes.
All right, and then how did that turn out once you got down to Netashall? Did you get a dedicated aircraft or what?
No, we flew all different aircrafts.
Okay.
Never had a good one.
You
So we
kept breaking them?
couldn't put our own name on it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, but there was a lot of ground school and a lot of training and more practice missions while we were at Netashall before we ever flew our first mission, which was in April, actually. So it was February till April before I actually flew my first mission.
All right. It's interesting.
And then I flew actually 7 missions till the end of the war. And I guess probably one of the most memorable ones was April the 7th, 1945, when we went to a place called Kaltenkirchen Airfield, which was outside of Hamburg.
Okay.
And that was the last time that the Germans threw up all of their fighters that they had. So we got a taste of what some of the earlier flights went through.
Okay.
With the flak and all. And so actually...
How did that mission turn out for y'all?
Well, we didn't get hit. I don't remember having any holes in the biplane at all.
Okay.
You know, so I guess it was charmed life.
Yeah, I would think so. Because, I just interviewed a gentleman earlier. He was on that same mission.
Yeah.
And they got beat up pretty good.
Yeah. Well, at that time, there was a switch. Germans decided that if they couldn't shoot them down, they would ram them. So they did. There was some in our group, the good crew that I knew, that was rammed by one of the German fighters.
Okay.
And their theory was that they would ram the airplane and then they would bail out if they could. They tried to do it in such a way that they could bail out, but it didn't always work that way. But it caused B-17 to go down, no doubt.
All right, and you saw that happen?
That was one, yeah.
Okay.
And ME-262, that was the first jets that I had seen flash through our group. And so then he pulled up in front of the group and everybody opened up on him and he blew up. So...
He made a mistake.
Yes, he did.
Well,
they had some green pilots, I think, towards the end.
Yes, sir, I think they did.
They lost a lot of pilots.
They lost a whole lot.
Yep.
So they didn't have anywhere near the skill level or training level they needed.
Yep.
Okay. Any other major significant event for any of those missions?
That was a major one. We went to Munich, and I think the flak was the worst I ever saw it down there. It wasn't fighters so bad, but the flak was, you know the old story.
Yes, sir. Yeah. But your plane survived that, did okay.
It did.
Okay, and all of the crew members you flew with, they were all okay?
Yeah, they all made it through, but I didn't keep track of hardly any of our crew. The navigator was the only one, Abe Schwartz. He was the only one I ever kept track of afterwards.
Okay, but because you went there with the initial crew, but you ended up floating around to other planes
Yes.
and not just stay
Yeah.
dedicated to that one crew?
Right.
Okay. All right, and then did you participate in any Operation Chowhound missions?
I did. I did 2 of those.
Through those? Okay.
And
Could you describe what those missions were about?
well, yeah, well, maybe you've heard this before, but the Germans had stripped most of the food out of Holland, and they were very short, so the 8th Air Force agreed that they would fly some whatever food they could into them, and they would load probably, I'm sure it was non-perishable, like K-ration and that sort of stuff, full of the Bombay, and we would fly over. Our first one, I think, was to Amsterdam, and I remember flying over the canals and everything, going in there, and then very low over I don't know if it was a field, but it was a great open area in between a bunch of buildings.
Okay.
We would fly low over that and then open the Bombays and dump it out. And I talked to a person later that was a youngster at that time, and he remembered seeing those packages come down and tumble down the airport, and everybody rushing out to get them afterwards. So, and it did. It saved a lot of lives, Dutch lives, by providing them with some food.
Okay. And you got to do 2 of those missions?
2 of those.
And then what happened after that?
Well, the war ended.
The war was over.
After that.
Yep.
And so then there was a airplane that was the 5,000th airplane that Boeing produced.
Yes, sir.
It was called $5 grand.
Okay.
And it was in a different group, but they sent it over to our group to be flown back for a war bond drive. And Noah Thompson, they picked as a crew member, and his bombardier happened to have been wounded and was in the hospital, so they tagged me to go on his crew to come back. So we were the first airplane out of the 388th group, and we flew back up to Valley Wales first, then down to the Azores, and then up to Newfoundland, and then down to Bradley Field. And
Okay.
and we left the plane there, and that was the end of my flying career.
All right. It ended right there.
Yep.
Okay. So when did you muster out of the Army Air Force?
It was, I think it was November of 45,
Okay.
and I was a second lieutenant still,
Okay.
and I stayed in the reserve for a while and got up to the rank of first lieutenant, but I didn't stay in the reserve long, and I didn't have to go to Korea or any of those places.
Okay. All righty. So what did you do after you were mustered out? What kind of civilian job did you end up getting?
Well, I went to the University of Washington first and graduated from there.
Okay. You went to go get a bachelor's degree in
Bachelor's
what?
degree. And then I went to work a lot of different jobs first, but my interest was in the air. So I went out and started working for Northwest Airlines in their cargo department.
Okay.
And so I did that for quite a while. And then there was you know what forwarders were? They forwarded air freight on the airlines from one place to the other.
Yes,
and
sir.
delivered. Well, one forwarder was called Pacific Air Freight, so they enticed me to come with them, so I started in with them. And then later they merged with a company called Airborne Air Freight, and I was in the traffic department, and I was with them for 35 years, and I got to rose to assistant vice president of traffic, I
Okay.
guess. Did everything.
Did it all.
Purchasing, tariffs, everything.
Okay.
So 35 years and then retired in 1988.
Okay. But you had a good productive
Yeah. I
life.
spent a lot of my retirement right afterwards in building the log home up in the mountains.
Okay. You went back to doing that. Huh?
Yep.
Okay. Did you expand the one you had initially, or just did it?
No, finished it up. It only took 13 years to build it.
Oh, okay. Well, you in a big hurry?
That's what the inspector asked me. I called him to come down and inspect it for a final, and he didn't come, so I called him back, and he said, "Well, I didn't think you were in a hurry." So,
Just need
Yeah,
to
and then
occupy it.
I built a garage and shop that was bigger than the house, so
Yeah.
we had that. So that was stick frame, so that went up much faster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it kind of is that way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. This was pretty short and quick. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything else you wanted to share? Any other story?
No, I can't think of any offhand.
Okay.
It was quite an experience to look back on. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but
Yes, sir.
you tend to remember the good parts.
Yes, sir. Did you? Oh, what? Since that was kind of like sort of winding down or something. Do you remember much of the? Let's talk a little bit about the on-base activities. Did you get to participate? Did they have any band concerts while you were there or anything like that?
Well, I was not there all that long, so I did not participate in hardly any of them.
Okay.
We had our bicycles and with the crews, and we'd ride around the countryside, and that was it. But they did have a lot of dances and bands. You know the story of Glenn Miller that
Yes, sir.
came by, and
Were you able to see him?
No.
No, he was already gone.
yeah, he was
That's right,
gone.
because that was, I think, a year before.
Yes,
You know, I think I'd interviewed people before that, back in 2005, and he's saying that was one of his last concerts. Came through y'all,
yeah,
and then I think he was gone off to do another concert, and he never made it.
yeah. You know what really got him? The British, when they came back and hadn't dumped their bombs, they had an area in the sea that they would dump their bombs, and they figured that he was in that area when they dumped their bombs. In fact, one person remembers seeing that type of airplane. It was a small single-engine one. So that's what they figure got him.
Yes, I heard that too.
Yep.
Yeah, so I didn't know. You heard the same story.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, that sounds like that's kind of what happened. Because they've never found any remains
No.
or, you know, whatever. So, but
Very
that
sad.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah, it is kind of sad. Well, okay. Well, I think that's it. I appreciate
Okay.
your time and attention to help on this project.
Very good.
And you enjoy the rest of the reunion.
Oh,
We'll
yes.
see you again.
I shall.
Okay. We'll
Okay.
go off. We'll